Hello and welcome to another Let's Play. This is It Is Happening Again, a Twin Peaks fan game where we focus on the sad life of Annie Blackburn. So let's get into this. Red curtains on all sides surrounded the room like a stage, like a magician is about to pull something out of a hat. In a stiff, slick lounge chair sits Annie Blackburn. She's sitting, waiting at the end of a frayed thread to be tied back in. There's no time. Like the present left to run as far as I can tell. And the present is an unwanted gift. There's no time here, but time still passes. It passes by outside in the place time was made for. And he's fallen down between the cushions, between two worlds, sitting in the waiting room with no number card that could be called and nothing to hope for. Stuck inside the darkness within the magician's hat, her only companion is herself. All the Annies she ever was existing on top of each other. How's Annie? Nostalgic, lost, queasy, tired, afraid, fine. Tired? Annie in the future is Miss Twin Peaks, and she's stuck in the same cycle as every other Annie. She's lying down on the cold white bed. The hospital room is quiet right now. It hasn't been. People must want to see the unconscious beauty queen. Am I any more interesting than the dead one? Annie doesn't recognize most of the people who have been through this room. Plenty of them wear medical uniforms, which at least explains their presence. Plenty more don't. It's difficult for her, in hazy halfway awareness, to appreciate why people she barely recognizes are coming by her bedside with eyes full of tears. They're shedding them for the symbol and not the woman still stuck in the comatose body before them. Moving here to the hometown of her half-sister who got to live a whole life, feeling familiar to everyone without fitting in. It's harder than it seems, even without ending up unconscious in a hospital bed. I'm waiting to wake up. I'm already awake. Norma stops by, brings a pie that Annie can't eat, and ends up leaving it to the nurses. After the initial interest wears thinner than stocking heels, Norma is the only one who still visits. She sits by the bed and talks. It's like talking to the TV. There's no answer, and eventually everything goes static. If Annie could answer back, she would. She's got plenty to say. How I remember she was always my only visitor every time I felt trapped. As Annie lies still, staring at the ceiling under itchy hospital sheets, she thinks there's a reason they close corpses' eyes for them, so they don't have to see what happens next. But nothing happens next. Annie can't interact with anyone, not Norma sitting solemnly and nursing a cup of flimsy tap water, not the sheriff whose voice shakes when he asks if she's awake enough to answer questions, not even her own body. The days drift by with nothing but the hospital ceiling in sight, and no light waiting at the end of her tunnel vision. I'm in prison. I've been in prison before. Prison's been an empty motel corridor, a secondhand school uniform, a bottle with a cap that keeps sticking. It's been a girl with frizzy hair who wants to know her father's name. It was silent reflection in an empty visitor's room, and the noise the owls made late at night. Annie knows prison like she knows how to count change. The stage she's entered since she woke up in ill girl willoquery. This is the natural conclusion of it all. This is what she's been practicing for what everything built up to. Annie trapped inside herself forever. Stuck inside my skin. All because of the handsome stranger, of the wild magician, of the ongoing pattern. Handsome stranger, I guess? Where was he now? No one had told her. When the sheriff carried her here, she'd hoped to overhear someone say something about what had happened. Time hadn't stopped while she was trapped in that world between the sycamore trees. One hand was holding on still to the edge of the curtain, or the edge of the outside world. Wherever she really was, she wasn't. Half of her was stuck in the other place. Halfway to the world of red curtains and cold coffee. Halfway to an immovable body and dusty get-well-soon cards. Coming or going. She hadn't overheard anything about him. She thought he had come out with her, but she thought she saw him sometimes. Back of his suit, slithering through the curtains in the other place. With half of her here and half of her there, what's real and where it's happening is hard to say. Either way, she only hears small, scant details of what happened, of how she was found, of what people are saying about it, and not what became of Dale Cooper. Coming or going. She gets her limbs back, but not her voice, and not all the time. Her fingers work just well enough for an escape attempt. The morning after, she's in a different hospital bed. That feels like the last one. The time between so significant it might not have happened. Until she hears his voice. It's detached from the rest of him, like it's been taken and wrapped in wax paper. But it's his, and he asks for her. How's Annie? I'm fine. When she answers, everyone turns to her. These words for the first time since she was taken. Since only half of her came back. These words escape into the outside world. Nora's got hope in her eyes for the first time. And the last time. It's not the start of anything new. It's a continuation that'll never end. They still come looking for one of their own. She's in the hospital for 2 months before Nora takes her home. Makes promises she has to swallow her down dry. She means them when she says them. Nora never mentions friends. It's unclear whether Annie's presence dampens any discussion of an outside life, or if she's the roadblock that bars such a thing existing at all. Too sad a sight to stare her happiness with. I suck the air out of the room. But no one comes knocking for Norma anymore either. After a while, it doesn't matter anyway. Annie's barely able to bring a bowl to her lips, let alone anything anymore. It never gets better. Her sister can't sustain the stress of caring for someone who couldn't seem to care less. Annie's mother, already a faint fingerprint on her existence, vanishes completely once it's obvious the coma is never completely cleaning. As if I could compete with strange men in stuffy motels. Annie ends up being bundled off to a private hospital. Like a private school before, it's an excuse for family to forget her existence. That's not how Norma sees it. The guilt doesn't ever go away, but it doesn't stop her from passing Annie's suitcase into the nurse's hands. It's a quiet life for a living statue. It's not always quiet. Talking in the world through Tupperware, through plastic wrap, through thick red drapes. How is she supposed to hear when there's whispers in her ear from another world? 50-50 whether it feels like itchy sheets in creamed hospital corn, or sticky leather seats and breeze through trees, somewhere out of sight. A strangulation. Overstimulation. Everything elation. Reality is laid out on top of each other like layers of sponge, bleeding red jam, juxtaposition. The curtain drawn around a hospital bed, the curtain that closes off the red room, the smell of pine from fresh trees, from stale ale freshener. Carried into the woods by the fool magician full of malice, carried out again by the lawman, languishing in misplaced pity, carried to the bathroom when she can't walk, carried out of her own control. I want to feel my feet on the ground. Who's still waiting in the real world that wonders how she is? She hears it again. The questions come. Same time every year. The exact same. So exact it must be echoing. He can't still wonder how I am. The only time she talks is to tell him the answer he'd want to hear once a year. Such a struggle to keep stepping from one place to another, to hear, smell, touch the spectrum up somewhere here and somewhere there, no separation. The real world doesn't want her back. She couldn't answer their questions or give them closure. What good is Annie on her own? I'm not the one they wanted to come back. Easy to accept suicide as an escape attempt. Even that is unsuccessful. She fumbles it, ends up in hospital again, knowing this is the most she's managed to impact the real world for a whole year. Maybe more. It's bitterly amusing, and if Annie could smile, staring up at the same ceiling she saw after they rescued part of her from the woods, she might just do it. But only one voice asks what Annie thinks anymore. It was harder at the start. I could use a good laugh. Much later, someone in a suit stops by at last. Annie's hardly aged, already in her 50s, and still looking like she's only old enough to drink by a few years. Sitting still is good for the skin. The intruding FBI agent marks the first time since her initial hospital stay that anyone's asked questions, and she finds she still can't say a word. I have a lot of questions. They'll never get answered. I want to know what happened to him, why he never visited afterwards. The young agent who comes to question Annie knows where Dale Cooper went after Glastonbury Grove. She tactfully holds her tongue. And Annie can't ask. There's only one thing I could ever say. How's Annie? How's Annie? How's Annie? How's Annie? I'm fine. I'm weird, actually. They've left you in limbo. It's less than you deserve, but you don't think escape is that easy, do you? Annie is over, and now it never ends. One more time. Red curtains on the side surround. Okay. So, is this just like a repeat? Yeah. So there you go. There's, it is happening again. There's like more, like you can keep doing different choices, but I'm just gonna leave it here. I'll leave a link to where you can play the game yourself. And yeah, you can go check out all the other different options that you can choose and where that takes you and stuff. But there you go. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Later.